we standing for this one? You're sitting. Yeah. Standing. Okay. I'll sit for a moment until you're ready to stand, and then I will stand.
Okay, so next up, Ethan, longtime friend and student and contributor, and he should be doing his own entire day workshops, but here he is. Here he is doing his short form. What with the time we have left, but
45 postures. That's ridiculously excessive.
Take it away, sir.
So the space I like to play in. So we've got lots of great and wonderful teachers who will take you beyond the boundaries of what you had learned previously, and it's wonderful, mind-opening stuff. And I can look for new horizons to work in, but where I really like to work is actually in the skunk works. I like to work in the space in between because one of the things that I specifically remember from when I first met you and first did a workshop with you was the kind of the expression of, okay, everybody, get into your stance and point your fingers, and now already you feel that chi surging, right? And for me, I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, totally. I have no idea what that means. And I had the good fortune over my studies to experience specific practices which gave me a spontaneous kind of cracking open of that dam. They gave me this kind of hot-wired experience where suddenly I had some inkling of what that even meant. And not every practice before or after that would reliably give that, and it's only after a couple decades of practice that I start to feel like I've found where I can do that. And so a big part of that for me is going back and digging into the little details, the little things that we miss. And specifically, what I've really been into lately is a lot of body mechanics stuff, because well, it's something that we never really escape, because we do work in the superconscious. We learn how to integrate and how to move as a whole. And frankly, if you have a good Tai Chi practice and a good Tai Chi teacher, and you're applying mindfulness and you're working through it, these things become available. And the lesson that I want to teach today is something that you will learn without ever actually articulating it, I think. So one of the first things, no matter your Tai Chi practice, the first emphasis is relax. Or as Steve likes to teach, and I'm a really big fan, it's never relax, it's never relaxed, it's relaxing, because it's a continuous process. It's never done, and it's never, checked off. It's something that we're continuously doing. And so a big part of the relaxing, so if everybody find yourself in a nice stance, we'll build it really quickly from the ground up. So feet about shoulder width apart, should be nice and comfortable, feet more or less parallel. Unlock the knees, let them settle. Make sure the weight's evenly distributed between your feet and within each foot. Release your thighs, release your butt, release your lower back, release your abs. Just let your pelvis settle. Tune into your neck, to your head. Let it rise from the string, is what we always talk about, right? And just let your arms hang, but make sure that you let your shoulders fall open, not fall in, but fall open. And so when we're talking about relaxing, we're not talking about going limp. There's a big difference between relaxing and going limp. Going limp is lifeless. Relaxing, we know in our Tai Chi, is not limp, but it is not unrelaxing. And so in breaking into all of this, into resolving this work, because from there we say relaxing, okay, good, you've got that, settled, done, right? Now we can do the form. And then, we're going through movements and we're finding these subtle things, and we're checking back in with our principles, the old lady hands, and all of those little catchphrases that reference bigger lessons. But at the end of the day, I think one of the major barriers to really getting into this essence is a specific language that we carry with all of us and rarely take the time to learn, which is the language of the body. What do I mean by that? So if you watch a film in a language you don't understand, if you're completely unfamiliar, especially if the language is syntactically completely different from the one you speak, like say, if you've never heard Chinese before and you watch a movie in Chinese, it's just sound. There's no succinctness to it. There are no consonants. There are no words. It's just sound because you have no context in which to pull out the pieces. So if you watch it enough, especially if you watch it with subtitles, you start to recognize patterns. And if you actually study it, then they'll give you specific frameworks so that then when you listen to it, you might not get everything, but you say, oh, wait, I heard that structure in the sentence. I heard that word. I heard that, that idiom. And so what I want to do today is basically give you a real quick and real fundamental framework for the language of the body. And I say it that way because it is not the framework. This is not the be-all end-all. This is just a way of understanding it. And if we're going to talk about the body, and if we're going to reduce it down to the first and most essential thing, as Andrew is already working today, we're talking about the spine, because it's connected to everything else. And at that, the spine is this wonderfully complex thing that runs up our entire body from head to pelvis. And each of those pieces, because we think about vertebrae as an abstract thing, but each of those is webbed into a network of muscles and connective tissue. It's this really complex thing. And nerves. Can't forget those nerves. So there are actually three kind of fundamental mechanical structures in the body. Skeleton, bones. Nice, right? Most solid, most structural, least moving, least expressing. And we've got the muscles, which are pretty easy to latch onto. That's the meat, that's the thing that's generating the movement, mostly, in theory. And then there's the connective tissue, which is all around all of that. It's connecting all of that. Every muscle is connected to bone by connective tissue. Every muscle is wrapped in connective tissue. Every muscle is wrappings on wrappings of connective tissue. The connective tissue system goes throughout the entire body continuously without stopping. Cool, right? The thing about the Tai Chi practice, I think, in the body is that what you're eventually learning, but we never express it this way, is basically how to get all of those structural systems into their dynamic range, which is to say, nothing is at the range of its ability. What does that mean? So if we're talking about a muscle, anywhere in the middle of its motion is in the middle of its dynamic range. It can go in either direction. Connective tissue, if you ever lock a joint, so locking, yeah, Steve's instinctual reaction. Why would you do that? Why would you lock? Because when you lock the joint, you have fully extended a muscle, and you're now resting all of that structure on the connective tissue. And at that, you're actually pulling the connective tissue taut. So if we're at the range of motion, that's where injury can begin. So all of this work in Tai Chi, we're finding ourselves in the middle of a dynamic range. And if we're doing that with the spine, it gets pretty complicated because everything is connected, as I said, with this web. So if you're thinking in terms of making little adjustments to all the stuff in the middle, you can cause... So think about it this way. In every joint in the spine, you've got two bones, you've got two vertebrae, each connected to a web of things. If there's an issue in between those two bones, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to fix that. Now zoom out. Each of those is next to two others. So if you made one fix, you've now created two issues where there was once one. So trying to fix anything in the middle is a very tricky proposition, and generally not a good place to start. The place to start, then, by logic, at the end. So if you're going to start figuring out your dynamic range of your spine, start with the ends. So the ends, the base of your skull. So all of this so far has been a lot of words. Let's get into the body. So if you feel the part of your head that would rest on the pillow, and you feel your neck below it, if you feel up in there, there is a last vertebrae right before it meets your skull. That's the atlas vertebrae. That's the guy who holds up the earth in Greek mythology, holds up the world. So, that's the top.
Oh, it's not that little nodule that like sticks out right there. It's right below it.
It's below. Yep. So if you feel in your neck, it'll feel like there's kind of two bits that come up the sides, and you feel like there's a hollow in the middle.
Yeah.
If you go up to the top of that horseshoe, that's right about where that top is. That's where it's meeting your skull.
Is that the jade pillow?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yeah,
So that's the
jade
surface
pillow.
just above. Yep.
Pillow?
Top
Okay.
sweet jade pillow.
Yep. So for the top end of the spine, what I want to do actually at both ends is think of it in terms of two pairs. So for the top part, we're gonna tap into that very top vertebrae, and the second part you're gonna tap into is the most prominent one that you can reach. So you'll feel right around your shoulder level. There's this dot sweep, the great hammer. This is that vertebrae that kind of sticks out most before you go into your back. So if you tune into these two spots, these are the spots we're going to work with. So with a partner,
Got it.
find a partner nice and quick. Your partner is going to help you stay aware, and while doing that,
Help me!
so one partner for the other, you're going to, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your index fingers, you're going to go into this little pocket right below where your ear hole is, and you're going to come down just a little bit. So for your partner.
From the front or from the back?
From the back.
So you're doing it from behind them.
So you're going to make gentle contact. You don't need to press in. Does not take a lot of pressure. And what you're going to do from behind is you're going to take your thumbs and put them inside that little horseshoe on the back of the head. So it's really important that the pressure be soft and that you not be messing with their ability to move their head. Because what we want is, for the person who is being held, being touched, is we're going to play with the three axes of movement. So basically, the pitch, so chin up, chin down, but you're going to try and isolate around these points that they're helping you tap into. Because if you try to move too much, you're going to get the rest of the neck going.
So by isolate, do you mean kind of do the movement in relation to the experience of these points?
So you're trying to move at that point.
That's the pivot, the
Yep,
hinge.
exactly. So there's pitch, which is chin up, chin down, eyes up, eyes down. There is tilt, which is the side to side, which you'll find is very limited in range. And the last is rotation, so that's looking side to side. So if you're the person with the fingers, you need to let the fingers move with their head, because you're not fixing them in place. You're just giving them that point of reference and tuning in to listen. But again, notice the limitation of the range of motion, because the person who has their fingers on your neck should be able to tell you that as soon as you move beyond a certain amount, they can feel the other stuff start to move as well. And we're really trying to tune into just that top joint. So what we find is there's a good amount of range of rotation, and there's a bit of range of motion in terms of pitch. There's very little in terms of tilt, which is good.
Drop your chin. You don't want to disconnect.
Thank you, Steve.
My finger.
So now we're gonna tap into the next one. So what you're gonna do if you are the partner? Oh, sorry. Actually, switch partners, so you can see the other person can feel.
Okay, ready? No, not yet. Sorry.
So again, go through those quick 3 range of motion. Find the pitch.
Can I feel
Yeah. So find the pitch, chin up, chin down. Find the tilt, side to side. And find the rotation, looking side to side. And you really want to tune into that top joint in the neck. Now, if we just focused on that one joint alone, we could get some little fishiness, especially because it's hard to do anything with the spine that's not connected to everything else. So, the other part that we're going to tune in on is that last cervical vertebrae. That's that prominent point sticking out of your back just at the shoulder line. So what we're going to do is, same partner was just touching, you're going to put your hands on their shoulder as if you are creating a collar at their neck. Careful not to push in. And with your index fingers, you actually want them gently going up the side of their neck. And again, be very careful. You don't want to hinder their motion, but you want to give them the ability to tune into that joint. And so now, from that joint, we're going to play with pitch. So now it's your entire neck and head that's going to pitch forward. You should find that there's not much you can do in terms of pitching back, but you should have a fair amount of pitch forward. Now with a little bit of tilt. So again, mind you, this is not your neck curling to the side. If you're moving from that joint, the neck should be tilting, the whole head and neck. So again, very limited range of motion from just that one joint. And lastly, rotation. You should find there's actually very little that you can do there, because this is one of the vertebrae that's right in the middle of the column, so everything is tied into that. So now, with that, switch partners so the other person can feel. So again, hands resting as if a collar on the shoulder, index finger up the neck. And so the idea here is to get a really clean, sense of the pitch. Yeah. Without, of course. So find the pitch. Forward should have a decent range of motion. Back should be pretty limited. Tilt side to side. There should be a degree of range of motion, like you're bringing your ear to your shoulder with your neck straight, not curling. And lastly, rotation. But bear in mind, you're not turning your head, you're turning at the base of your neck. So you should find there's actually very little rotation, because you feel how you're turning your head. Turn from the base of your neck. Yeah, not much there, right? So if we're going to open, thank you, if we're going to open the neck, if we did any part of this, we could miss all of it. So what we want to tune into, now that you've had that physical sensation to help you find it, close your eyes, go into your neck, find those two joints that you were just playing with, and now move the two of them in conjunction. So try with the same sort of motion. And to really feel the difference, to feel the articulation, when you play with them the opposite direction. So what I mean is, you're going to pitch down with the bottom of your neck, and you're going to pitch up with your head. So this is where you get to walk like an Egyptian. And again, pitch back with the neck and pitch forward with the head. And feel that functionally what happens is your chin stays on the same level if you match the movements. And this is specifically the axis we want to play with, because this is the thing that most often gets lost in our physical habits. What you will tend to see is, in our computer using car driving world, is this. So if you can tune into these two joints, you can find that range of motion. And I'm not here to tell you what the right way is. I just want you to be articulate in the language, so that as you're doing your practice, you can go through that range of motion, try tuning this, and see how your Tai Chi changes. See how the feeling in your body changes. And it's just as simple as that. Just playing with those things, because at the end of the day, what we want is not to mess with our equilibrium. What we've gotten comfortable to is lazy and familiar, and often hyperextended. Although
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
You started by talking about don't do the middle, do the two ends.
Yep.
It feels like what you're thinking about the two ends of the cervical at
Yeah.
this point, rather than I had been waiting for you to talk about the Wei Lu. Right, but for now we're thinking of that hole,
Yeah.
which is the cervical. Okay, I just want to make sure that I didn't lose the thread.
Right.
Okay.
Because the point is, this is the top end of the spine, and this is the easiest place to make a little tweak that'll make a big difference in your experience of the open mouth. recognize when we're actually collapsing our neck structure, because it's just familiar, it's what's comfortable. What's comfortable is not something that you feel. It's the point at which you stop feeling. So this is back to feeling the grass, feeling your feet. So if you're not feeling it, it's because you're comfortable. If you're comfortable and you reckon, I'm a Tai Chi master, maybe not worth checking in on. But maybe if you don't reckon that you've become an enlightened perfect being, we can go back and play with that and see what happens. And so the thing that's worth remembering is comfort is the sense of no sensation. So when you change it, you're going to feel something. And it might not feel comfortable. But if you can tune into this with your practice as a lens, with your feeling of your chi as a lens, your feeling of your alertness, of your awareness, of your brightness, you should be able to play with this and feel an improvement. I'm not going to tell you how you find that improvement. I'm not going to tell you what the right thing is. Play with it, see how it changes, and use that to inform your structure. So, of course, this is the top end, so let's deal with the other end of the spine. This is where things get fun.
Time, we're pretty much up.
Okay. Well, then I will just give you the short version, and you can play with the range of motion and start to figure this out. Because again, we're going to do a 2-point system that we're going to work between. The first point is actually the very bottom of your moving spine, which is the joint between your sacrum, so that's your tailbone, and your very last lumbar spine. So basically, this will be right under your belt, if you were wearing a belt. If you're wearing a belt, we should talk later. So, real quick, just like with the neck, tune into that and keep in mind that without moving the stuff around it, you're actually going to get very little range of motion out of that on its own. But that's going to be a really important joint, because that's going to be a joint where it's going to start the rest of the spine going. The other point that we're going to couple with that is actually, so if you put your hands on the seam, so if you imagine if you don't have seams on your pants, or if you actually have convenient stripes that go right down the side, put your index finger on your belt on that seam, and then go down about a finger's length below that. You should feel that there's a little bit of an indent. So you should feel a muscle above, and then it settles into a little pocket, and then the thigh kind of comes out from that. So in that pocket, poke in with your fingers until you feel something hard underneath. So about another finger's length beyond the tip of your finger right now is the other joint.
The trochanter and the...
Right. Yeah. So this joint is actually, we're getting into the hip joint, and I want you specifically to come into it from the side because, again, we're going to play with the pitch. So oftentimes the way this is taught in Tai Chi, you hear people say tuck in your stomach, you hear people say tuck in your tailbone to the table, or drop your tailbone, or this kind of language, and the end result is actually tends to be tension. Tends to be the flexing of muscles. It tends to be kinking and pulling in. When in fact, we're relaxing, right? That was lesson number 1, day number 1. That's what we were doing. So, if you relax your back, you relax your butt, if you relax your hips, if you relax your abs, you should now be able to play with these 2 joints. So imagine instead of 2 separate hip joints, because that gets into a whole other lesson, boom, and the sung kwa. So imagine there is a bar between your 2 fingertips. And now take that bar and that point in your back, and now play with those just the way we were playing with the neck. So again, we're not doing crazy stuff like this, and we're not curling or twisting, but we're just playing with the tune between them without pulling on them with a muscle, because we're relaxing everything, right? So just let them shift and feel that range of motion. So with the same thing that Andrew was doing earlier, this is where we start to find articulation. And the funny thing is, with the neck, it felt like you had a pretty good sense of articulation, right? Because you're used to doing all this stuff. But chances are, you've not been doing this with your hips, with your waist, with your pelvis. So just laying the groundwork now, if you play with this through your practice, and I'm not telling you the right place to be, just play with that range. See what you can unlock, and see how it shifts your form, see how it shifts your experience of the chi, of the wholeness, of the awareness, of your alertness. See how things change, and let that guide your practice.
That's great, Ethan.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's really, really
Condensed
excellent
version.
stuff. Excellent stuff.
Sign up for my newsletter now.